Speaking of all of this, let's get to our Jim Cramer this morning with a very special guest. Hey, Jim.
Thank you, Carl. Yes, we have to speak right now to George Kurtz, the CEO of CrowdStrike, a company that has a stellar reputation, but we want to know what this will do to it. George, thank you so much for coming on Squawk on the Street.
Thank you, Jim. Thanks for having me.
All right, George, I know your company very well. Our viewers know it too. How did this happen?
Well, first, Jim, let me start with, I want to personally apologize to every organization, every group, and every person who's been impacted by this. And we understand the gravity of the situation. And let me explain a little bit more about what happened. This was not a code update. This was actually an update of content. And what that means is there's a single file that drives some additional logic on how we look for bad actors. And this logic was pushed out and caused an issue only in the Microsoft environment, specific to this bug that we had. We identified this very quickly and rolled back this particular content file. Obviously, many organizations are impacted, and many of them are beginning to recover. Many systems can be rebooted, and we've fixed the issue, so the systems are coming up and running. Some systems may not fully recover, and we're working individually with each and every customer to make sure that we can get them up and running and operational. But to be clear, it was not a cyber attack. It wasn't anything related to that. It was a content bug or update that we sent out, that we identified, and we rolled back.
Why do many different users find themselves with the blue circle of death? And how do IT people get in touch with who is down? Because will this take, are we talking hours? Are we talking days?
Well, many of the systems are quickly coming online because they're able to be rebooted, and the problem goes away and is fixed. Some systems are going to take some more time. It could be hours, it could be a bit longer, but we're working with customers that if the system doesn't fully recover, we're working with them on the specific fix for that. So essentially, we are providing guidance through our tech support, through our blogs. Everything that we know, we want to be as transparent as we can and get that out to our customers.
George, this is CrowdStrike we're talking about. Is this Falcon, which is your best program? And I need to know, why did you not phase this in? Why was this done all at once? That seems to be, to me, irresponsible.
Well, it traditionally goes out in a phased approach, and it goes through, what we do is, we've been doing this a long time, testing throughout the life cycle of any of these updates. So it initially went out and we started to see some issues and then pulled it back. So not all of our customers are impacted. Windows and Linux are not impacted. And as soon as we saw this issue, which didn't manifest itself before we obviously sent it out, we rolled it back. And now we're dealing with the impacted systems.
I want to be sure about this. This did or did not get to Azure, which is Microsoft's cloud, because if it did, then maybe that would explain things, but maybe they're separate.
Well, Azure can run, customers run in Azure, right? And they can run our software there. So if there was a customer that was running in Azure that had our software, it could have been impacted. But that's the extent of what I know specific to the Microsoft piece.
You do not know whether this has impacted Azure or not?
Well, when you say Azure, it has impacted customers that are running in Azure. That's what I know.
All right. Now, let's talk about liability. You offered an apology. To me, an apology means that therefore you are culpable and therefore you will be sued, maybe perhaps sued by airlines, perhaps sued by networks, perhaps sued by banks. Let's talk about the liability to CrowdStrike and what it could mean.
Well, we have to sort out what that all looks like, Jim. Obviously, from our perspective, and I wanted to jump on the air because it's all about our response and getting our customers back up and running. We'll do the hot wash on how this happened and ensure it doesn't happen again. I think past that, we'll deal with. My goal right now and my mission is to make sure that every customer is back up and running and providing the protection that they've come to rely on from CrowdStrike.
Do I believe that if the ones that have not come online yet perhaps have to be hand fixed, which would stretch every single IT department of everybody who is a client who you sent this update to?
Yeah, well, we're working on the automation. There's many times this can be automated to be fixed. It may take more automation than just simply rebooting the system. And that's what the teams are working on right now with customers. But we've been in contact with. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Obviously been in contact with customers working through the fixes, and many of them again are coming back online.
All right, I'd like to turn this over to my colleagues, David and Carl. Maybe you want to ask George something?
Yeah, Jim, thank you. And George, thanks for being here. Yeah, I mean, to Jim's point, I think right here, I know on the ground here at the New York Stock Exchange, our CNBC computers are going to require somebody apparently to come and actually do some sort of an update manually. So again, this could take some time, couldn't it, for organizations that are going to require somebody to actually manually update code or whatever it may be to be able to successfully reboot.
Yeah, there could be some manual steps involved, and certainly we're looking at ways to be able to automate those manual steps. And depending on the system and the computer brand and the network and how it actually works, it's different in each organization. Many systems can be rebooted, and the fix can be done automatically upon a reboot that's specific to the hardware manufacturer. So we have to work through that, but there is a manual fix for it that can be employed. And again, we're looking at ways to automate those sort of fixes so that it isn't as manual as going to each system.
Understood. You mentioned obviously some updated content, the issue with the Microsoft environment solely, but to what extent is Microsoft, or in the past, had they perhaps been able to identify something that might cause a problem? I'm just curious to understand if there's any culpability here in terms of Microsoft as a result of what's occurred.
Yeah, we're trying to sort out on our end, again, exactly the interactions. And as you might imagine, the operating system, and this is what we're talking about, Microsoft operating system, is robust and complex. And if you have a negative interaction based upon our content update, that caused the issue, right? Or can cause the issue. So we've got to do a hot wash and figure out exactly what systems were affected. Was it a particular operating system version or a patch level on a particular system? We don't have all the details on that yet, but that's what we're going through right now.
George, historically, because you've been on Mad Money multiple times, you have had less than complimentary things to say about Microsoft and cybersecurity. Is that at all impacting your ability to be able to work with Microsoft this morning to get this resolved?
Yeah, we know what the fix is, and we've already rolled that out. So, specific to Microsoft, again, I think both us and Microsoft are focused on customers and customer health, and we want to make sure that customers get up and running.
Let's talk about reputational risk, because again, at CNBC, I have to believe that CrowdStrike has a black eye. I'm not sure exactly what that extends to. Have you already had customers who just said they're fed up and don't understand why you did this?
I think many of the customers understand that it's a complex environment, and staying one step ahead of the bad guys requires these content updates, right? And I think what we've seen before and what we see now is that customers are understanding that we are doing everything that we can to get in front of it. This is why I'm on your show, Jim.
Of course.
We want to be able to say what we're doing. We want to keep people updated. We want to be as transparent as we can and be front and center with our customers, standing shoulder to shoulder to make sure they get them up and running.
Best
there's some things are out of my control. What I can control is our response.
No, we would appreciate you coming on and being straightforward. But again, we have to understand, I believe that best practices when you roll things out is to do things region by region, so impact is limited. It sounds like you did this all at once, all across the globe.
These are staged in terms of the actual rollout. It doesn't just roll out all to every computer that we have under the globe. It rolls out in a cascading fashion. So when we saw the issue, that's when we were able to roll this back so that the entire customer base was not impacted.
George, hi, it's Sarah. You know, what's so remarkable about this is the size and the scope. It's almost difficult, from McDonald's stores in Japan to 911 emergency services being affected to, of course, we've been talking about the airlines. It feels like we're pretty vulnerable to this sort of thing. I mean, what can we learn about what made this happen, why it's so interconnected, and how vulnerable are we going forward? I know you're supposed to protect against the bad guys, and this isn't related to cyber, but now they know how easy it is.
Well, it's an interconnected world. Our customers are still protected from the adversaries, and this is, again, what we do for customers day in and day out for, well beyond the last decade. But I think it shows the complexity of the technology environment and how interconnected the digital world is.
I have to admit, George, I am still confused. Some customers have between 10,000, 50,000 Windows machines. I have to believe it's hard to get there. And I want to know how much this needs to be done manually reset versus something you can do at your headquarters.
Well, it depends, Jim, on each customer and how their systems are configured. Some customers, it's simple as a reboot. Other customers, they can automate the reboot process and delete the file that was the offending content file. Others, it may be more manual. So it really depends on each individual system. It depends on the hardware manufacturer. It depends on how they have it configured. Each customer is bespoke in how they have their own operating system and IT configured, and we're working through the various ways to be able to bring them back online.
Okay, now, obviously, we're more concerned about first responders in 9/11. How many of them are back on, and how many do you believe are right now, I'd say, in the dark about what's happening?
Well, we're communicating to our customers through various channels, our blog and our tech support portal. And obviously, we're going through the number of impacted customers. I don't have the exact details for you as we go through them, but as you might imagine, we're working through each customer through our customer support, and we're being proactive in letting them know what's going on and the potential fixes that are available to them.
George, it's David again, just to follow on Sarah. I mean, this morning when I woke up and my app that tracks the subway trains that lets me know what time they're coming in didn't work, and then I went to a city bike and I tried to retrieve a bike to get down here, and that didn't work. I think a lot of people say, my God, if this can happen just from a simple update of content, what in the world could our real adversaries, such as the Chinese, do to us? How do you answer that?
Well, this is the challenge with cybersecurity. When you look at infrastructure and you look at keeping the bad guys out, I mean, there's incredible capabilities that the Chinese government has, and this is one of the areas, again, why we focus on being able to protect against these sort of attacks. Obviously, it was an issue that we're dealing with, but the sophistication of the adversary shows how vulnerable we are. And it's a function of the interconnected world. You like using your app, you like the speed and ability to get on the subway or call a car service or what have you. Everything is interconnected, everything is connected in the cloud. And this is why these systems need to be protected.
All right, George, I want to be able to try to give you your due here. I want to be saying that this could happen to anyone. This was a glitch. This was not something which says that CrowdStrike should not be counted on when it comes to cybersecurity.
That's right, Jim. Again, we've, I think, built a stellar reputation on protecting customers. I've been at this for a long time. I'm personally involved in making sure that we get every customer up and running. And from my perspective, it's how we respond to this and how we get customers up and running. There are many companies that have issues and bugs and different things that may impact the system. This is just part of software and part of the interconnected world. I want to be here and I want to talk to you directly and the audience to let our customers know that they're protected. We're working through this issue. We've identified it very quickly. We've rolled it back. And now we're bringing our customers back to health. And that is our promise. That's my promise.
Apropos what David and Sarah are asking, I'm struggling with this automation part. If a machine is frozen, George, it will not respond to anything. Automation requires the machine to be alive.
Well, depending on the system, again, Jim, some systems can be simply rebooted because they're power cycled. Other systems can be rebooted from the network. Other systems are virtual, and once the virtual machines are all updated or rebooted, they come back online. So there is a high level of automation that can be done just by simply rebooting the system. Now, there are some systems that may not come back, which may require more manual intervention, which we're working through.
Right. You're watching the show right now and you're saying to yourself, I can't get on my computer. What should these people do? Just give us the quick of what you can do. If you're let's say you're an airline terminal in Delta and you're someone trying to put something through, can that person do something, or is that person just down?
That person, it's really going to be up to the IT department of the company that has the impact. So that's not something that a consumer can actually fix on their end. And we're working through this issue with the IT department to get things rebooted and deal with the offending content update that was pushed out.
Understood. George Kurtz, CrowdStrike CEO, we greatly appreciate you coming into us and telling it straight about what is happening with this massive outage. Thank you, George.
Thank you, Jim.
All right, back to Carl and David and Sarah.
Jim, I don't know if you have to run, Jim, but I am curious about your thoughts after what happened with AT&T the other day, the car dealers, which that impact is still ongoing. I wonder if you think this will force some would-be customers to slow down their automation plans in general. I mean, we've seen car dealers go back to pad and paper.
It's a great question, Carl. I don't have to go anywhere. What concerns me is that we have become so digitized, and all we do is get digitized, that maybe we have lost some control to the machines. I listened to George, and what concerned me, and remember, CrowdStrike and Palo Alto best here. What concerns me is that the lack of knowledge about what you can do in digital versus if it were by hand. If it were by hand, we would just walk our way through it. But Carl, it's so out of reach of everybody who has a screen that I begin to wonder, don't we lament that we have no backup by hand? It's almost as if we have turned over ourselves as humans to a machine, something David talks about a great deal, and surrendered our autonomy. Because if someone in Qantas and someone in Delta is down, that person really doesn't have a clue. And we can all say that they should just do X and just do Y. But the fact is, humans seem to be left out of the loop. I'm not sure if you guys agree with that. That's the way I feel.
Yeah. We're glad we had you on the desk for at least for a little bit today, Jim. And we'll talk more next week about Sentinel-1 and the fallout.
But greatly appreciate that George called in. There is reputational risk. The competitor is Palo Alto, and I'm going to go to the garden and pick some darn zucchini.
Let's see you, Jim. Have a good weekend.
The CrowdStrike outage has affected just about every industry: airlines, railways, shipping, healthcare networks, emergency response teams, restaurants, and the list just keeps on going. I hope everyone will be restored to normal soon. This morning, CrowdStrike stock fell sharply in pre-market trading. Shortly after open, there was a bit of relief as the stock was so extremely oversold on multiple time frames, and so we got a bit of a technical bounce. And at the time of this recording, CrowdStrike's price action has plateaued somewhat as market participants are digesting the news. In related news, Elon Musk posted today saying, quote, "We just deleted CrowdStrike from all our systems, so no rollouts at all." And shortly after that, Elon posted, quote, "Unfortunately, many of our suppliers and logistics companies use it." Now I want to talk about CrowdStrike stock for a moment. It is so very oversold on multiple time frames. If you look at the daily time frame, you can see the stock just absolutely plummeted and formed a massive daily gap. I noticed a lot of people talking online about how they didn't realize CrowdStrike was such an important company and they want to buy the stock. I'm not going to tell you whether to buy or not. That being said, if you're watching CrowdStrike stock, I think there are two things to consider here. First, the stock is very oversold, as I just mentioned, so it is possible we could see some technical bounces in the coming days, especially if CrowdStrike fixes the issues for all of their clients and then publishes a press release saying the problem is completely fixed. Then again, we don't know how long that will take. The second thing to consider is that following this incident, CrowdStrike is going to have to deal with massive reputational damage, and there is a very real possibility that they will be sued by many of their clients and other organizations that were impacted by today's events. So those are the two sides of the coin right now. Yes, the stock is very oversold, and you could get some technical bounces in the days ahead, especially if we get news that the problem is fixed for all of CrowdStrike's clients. But on the other hand, we don't know how badly CrowdStrike's reputation will be damaged by this, and we don't know how much money CrowdStrike may have to pay in damages if they are sued. Another interesting point to note is that this is the time of year when a lot of corporate contracts would be up for renewal, and so that is another risk. After today's events, are some of CrowdStrike's clients going to decline a contract renewal and look elsewhere? I don't know. That remains to be seen. Additionally, both of CrowdStrike's competitors, Palo Alto Networks and SentinelOne, are trading higher today as market participants anticipate them receiving some of CrowdStrike's former clients if those clients choose to leave CrowdStrike. With all of that said, I hope you are all well and that this situation hasn't affected you. I'm curious to know your thoughts on the situation in the comments below. Please leave a like on this video so more people will see it. And while you're down there, please consider subscribing. It's free, and you can always change your mind. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.